Another really important component to training for a marathon and racing a marathon is fueling during both training and race day. And a lot of athletes don't take advantage of practicing their fueling schedule during training, because this is something that is going to make or break on race day. It really, really is. And if you're not used to fueling, if you try something different, if you decide to, use new products on race day, you definitely have a higher risk of having some GI issues and struggling to reach your goals or finish the race. So practicing your fueling during training is super, super important. It's also important because it's going to help with recovery. Again, a lot of athletes will tell me, well, I feel fine. I can get through my whole long run without any fuel. It's not a problem. And yes, you can get through those runs without fuel. But like we've talked about before, if you don't use fuel during the run, you have to find that fuel somewhere. And typically that results in a lot of muscle breakdown, which kind of breaks down your running form, makes you less efficient, makes everything feel harder, kind of decreases that running economy, and helps it so that you're not getting as much out of that training session. So basically, what we want to look for with during run fuel is something that's going to be high in carbs. So depending on your experience with fueling for a marathon, if you have never fueled before, what you want to start with is aiming for about 20 to 40 grams of carbs per hour. So typically one gel has about 20 grams of carbs. So that would be anywhere from 1 to 2 gels per hour of training or racing. If you are more experienced or you're trying to run faster times, you may need more fuel than that. So what you can aim for there is on the higher end, upwards of 50 to 70 grams of carbs per hour. So that would be anywhere from 3 to 4 gels per hour. But there's also other ways to get carbs while you're running. So there's a few sports nutrition product options that can be really helpful for fueling during training. The first and probably the easiest one are gels. So a lot of times when people think of a gel, they think of the typical goo gel, which is really, really thick. There's tons of different gels on the market. So I just want to throw that out there. If you don't like goo, that's okay. There's so many other options. A few ones that you can start with looking into. A lot of times your local running store will have these, or you can find them online. Honey stinger gels are great. They're a little bit thinner than goo, but they have lots of flavor options. Goo does make a liquid gel, so this is more like drinking a concentrated solution. That's something that I use actually, and those ones are a lot easier to get down. Huma gels, Huma, those are gels made with chia seeds and fruit puree, so they're a little more natural tasting if you don't really like the super sweet gels. Morton gels are a little bit unique. They don't have a flavor and they have a texture more like Jell-O. Those are something you can use as well. And then UCAN, I would say, is another really popular one on the market, also a little bit thinner consistency. So try out a few different gels over the course of your training during your longer runs and longer workouts. This is a really great time to sample those products and make sure you find something that works well. If you don't like gels, you can also do energy chews. So, like Cliff Blocks or Honey Stinger chews. The challenge with these is that you have to eat quite a few to get enough grams of carbs per hour. So if you're okay with that, that's perfect. If you have a hard time chewing while you're running, that may not be a great option for you. The third option is a type of sports drink that has carbs in it and also electrolytes. So no matter what, we definitely want to be carrying or using fluids during longer runs, and these fluids should have electrolytes in them. So when I say electrolytes, we're looking for something that has about 300 milligrams of sodium per serving. So this could be Scratch Hydration, Tailwind, Gatorade, Morton. Any of those products are going to fit that bill. But the difference between these products is the amount of carbs they provide per serving. So again, if we're aiming for around 20 to 60 grams of carbs per hour, then the drink mixes can be a really helpful way to get that extra amount of carbs if you're struggling with the gels. So a product like Scratch or Tailwind, even Gatorade Endurance, those are going to have roughly 20 grams of carbs per serving. So if you can get down a full bottle in an hour, hour and a half, that's going to contribute to your total grams of carbs per hour during training. There's also more concentrated drink mixes that have more carbs in there. So Morton is another example. They have a Morton 160 that has 40 grams of carbs, and they have a 320 that has 80 grams of carbs. I would suggest starting with the 40 grams because it's a little bit less of a load of sugar on your gut. So sometimes if we do too much with liquid carbs, we can have some GI distress. So if that's something you've experienced before, you may need to try some different product combinations. But for example, if you're going to use Scratch Hydration, 1 serving of Scratch and 1 gel per hour would get you 40 grams of carbs per hour. So keep in mind, this is the easiest to do during training, of course, with a handheld or a vest, or if you're running loops, you can leave a bottle out there and grab a sip each time you pass. On the course, there's going to be aid stations available throughout the course, and so what you can do there is practice with the hydration products they'll be offering, which is going to be Gatorade. So you can practice with Gatorade during your training. Gatorade Endurance Powder is what you'd want to get, and you can kind of try that out throughout your training sessions. So this would be for during training with the goal of practicing for race day. So again, we're aiming for somewhere between 20 to 40 grams of carbs per hour if you're newer to fueling, and somewhere between 50 to 70 grams if you are more experienced with fueling and or you are trying to run quite a bit faster. We can get those carbs from gels, chews, or drink mixes, and we also always want to have fluids with us, aiming for anywhere from 8 to 24 ounces per hour, depending on how much fluid that you've been used to drinking in the past with training. Keep in mind that you can always work your way up. So you can start at 20 grams of carbs and 8 ounces of fluid, and by the end of the summer, come race day, you can work your way up to that 40 grams plus another, 16 ounces of fluid. So you're going to be able to tolerate a little bit more, just like you can train your body to tolerate running 26.2 miles. You can also train your gut to tolerate more fuel and hydration. So now is the time to start with your race day fueling plan, and those are some general guidelines to help you build your own.